Hello all you lighting enthusiasts out there. Today we're going to build the E6804 by SanDevices. This is an approved build as of 2019 in reference to the 2014 manual, which you might be familiar with. What I'd like to start is by familiarizing yourself with the components that are crucial that they go in the correct direction. The board is all labeled appropriately, capacitor, resistor network, such and such. The video you're about to see here is the theoretical. This is where all the components go and the direction in which they go. And I start with the smaller components first, working my way up to the larger components as recommended in the manual. And this did work out well. The larger components were not in the way as I was doing the smaller components. Please note, again, the direction of the positive lead on these components. Not all of them are crucial, but there are the LEDs, for example, are crucial. The capacitors are crucial. And here we are with a resistor bank, and now an updated resistor bank that is not in the manual. Just note that. And here we are with the first IC chip. This is the EEPROM, no pin 1, going it's into pin 1, which is indicated by a square hole instead of a round looking hole. The heatsink I placed here in the image, but then I deleted the image so you can see the rest of the components. Again, inserting the voltage regulator, notating pin 1. And now for the reality of the build, which was quite fun actually. Here we are building the 6804. Now I got all my components laid out, ready to go. It's an exciting project. So I picked up this little holder off of Amazon for less than 18 bucks. I saw it in another video. I said, hey, that might be helping me out a little bit. I have a generic little, it's like less than 60 bucks soldering station with the heat gun. And I caught a couple variable tips that I'm going to try out. So I'm starting out with a blunt tip. Got kind of a square end to it. I thought that might help a little bit. Now you can see it's a dirty little wet sponge. Clean it up a little bit. Now it's nice and shiny. Let's get going. So as we start this soldering job, I started with the small components first as suggested in the manual. As I mentioned before, I'm an amateur builder, probably just like most of you. Throughout this video, I did speed up a lot of sections, so you might feel the urge to jump ahead. Bear in mind, I did that for you already, some of the things, but when it came to some of the crucial components or issues that I had, I pretty much paused or slowed the video down so that you can see where I went wrong and how I corrected it. And trust me, I went wrong quite a few times. So as you see, I'm spreading out the leads so that they hold themselves in place. And again, this holder just allowed you to work so free and not worry about flipping the board back and forth, laying it on the pad. So here we go, our first little solder test. A little drop of solder on there. At this point here, I proceed to put the solder on there. Shouldn't be any problem, but it just doesn't seem to be holding well. I also get a lesson in thermodynamics. The little lead gets hot. So I grabbed the little needle nose there and proceeded to solder. Again, see, I speed it up for you guys so I don't bore you to death. And you can also enjoy the little background music I stubbed in there. It's free. It's royalty-free music. I put a link to the distributor in the comments. At this point too, I noticed that the tip just wasn't quite doing it for me, so I changed out the tip. I put a sharper tip on there, maybe because the components are so small, not used to what I'm dealing with. So I tried that, double checked my secures, and I said, you know, let's pop a little flux on there too to help maybe activate the flux to have it stick to the pads. There you go, round 2, the sharper tip. I did get a little bit better results, but as you find out further in the video, this didn't quite work out as well either. Give a little double check tug and all the leads. Now let's insert the crystal. This is not polarized, so it doesn't matter which way it goes in, but being OCD just made the numbers go in the right direction. A little bit of bend of the leads, a little bit of flux. Tug, make sure that it's got a nice secure hold there. What should we do next? Okay, yeah, LEDs. Now the LEDs are polar sensitive, so you have to make sure that the longer lead, which is positive, goes in the pad. It's usually indicated as a square. It might have a plus sign next to it indicating that it's the positive side. But usually pin 1 or the positive is square in nature. You know, round hole is square peg. In this case, it's a round peg and a square hole. Okay, here I don't know what happened, but I had a video jump or didn't hit record or something, and I put a whole bunch of components on, and sorry I didn't videotape it, but there they are. So, and here I try to put the flux on the pads first, and then put the resistor bank in. Please note that that is resistor bank 2. And they are different. Again, the soldering just was not up to par. I was frustrating it throughout this whole part of this build. Again, with the flux, I even put gloves on, thinking maybe it was the oils from my hands. And also the video camera started acting up. I was unaware of this, but you guys get the idea. Again, these diodes are polarized. They're marked with a little indicator. silver ring to indicate which side is the positive side, so please bear in mind which way those go in. Basically, a diode's purpose is to make sure electricity only flows in one direction. And here I am again. Just the flux and the soldering job is just not quite going to my satisfaction. Let's double check everything. You know, at this point, I was just, like I said, I was just frustrated. So I went on YouTube, looked for some soldering techniques, and came back and soldering cured. Basically, it was the tip. Again, I got a much rounder tip. It seems to have better surface area, perhaps, on the small leads. And it's nice and clean and new. And after discovering this, I went through and I just touched up all of the little joints, hitting each one and moving up as I hit each one, just testing it, making sure that they all worked good. Now moving on to this little jack. It's for the network port. Put it in there. Hit one of the leads. And what I didn't do, I didn't verify that it was seated correctly. I proceeded to solder. And guess what? Murphy sent his regards. It was a little crooked. So I had to force to straighten it out. Not too much stress on the situation. But that was a lesson learned. Not this time. And like I said, this tip was amazing how fast it just made everything go, because it just conducted the heat to the proper places. Now this small little EEPROM, you have to bear in mind this is also directional sensitive. So it has a little nub, and to indicate where pin 1 is. And you figure it would just slide right in, right? Nope. A little bit of tweezers. Maybe I put it in crooked. It has to go in straight. Nope, that didn't work either. Inevitably, I had to take it out, squeeze the pins in a little bit, allow it to slip right into the holes, and also double check that I'm on pin 1. Remember the square peg. Square hole round peg. See how fast it is with the correct tool. My dad always said, right tool for the right job. No, is it right tool, right job for the right tool? No, something like that. And these little things, even though they're not that sensitive, you should put them in a direction indicated by the board so that when you go to insert the chip, you have an overlay to tell you where pin 1 is, because once you solder this, you can't see that it's a square solder pad. Don't fast forward. I already fast forward this for you. Now comes the part where you put the pixels. These are the sockets that the pixels plug into. They're pretty straightforward plugging in as well. Enjoy some music. Now we proceed with the fuse holders. What I was unaware as I was soldering this, as you see, I did the solder, and then I said to myself, oh no, I bridged the solder pads. So I desperately tried to separate the two pads, unaware that it was a single pad. It just had 2 pins. So the bridging was okay. I also noticed that the holder was very close, the pads were very close to the edge, and the holder just wasn't holding the card properly, so I skipped the 3 there and proceeded to the 5th one, just so that the holder could do a good job holding it throughout the rest of the process. So now we're going to proceed with the voltage regulator. But first, we need to find the Allen key that fits it. I found out that it's not metric, it's actually SEA. Don't ask me what size I ended up finding, but I found it. But per the manual, we want to solder the heatsink first. Get that secure. Now this took a little bit more juice, you could say, because it is a heatsink. It's drawing the heat away from the solder pad, so it was a little bit more temperamental in heating. And again, with the little video problems, not sure why I did that. Maybe the card wasn't writing fast enough. So now, per the manual, we want to install the voltage regulator and screw it down tight. Not too tight, just snug, prior to soldering the leads. Some people say you should put some thermal paste on the backside against the heat sink or anything like that. I think that's a personal build preference. And try to save some time by cutting them all at once. Nope, don't do it. Just cut them one at a time. The old manual did say C5, but in contact with Jim, C5 was unnecessary. The reason why I asked him that is because I have some pre-built ones and it did not have it, so I questioned Jim about that. During this solder process, I just dabbed a little bit on there, double checked it, and it was floating a little bit. So I dabbed the other side very, very lightly, and then I just rocked it into place, heating up the pads so that it was till it was flat and flush. Then touched them up with a good solid bead. I picked up this brush, little dollar store, little stencil brush, because the solder I had was flux core, so it kind of made the back of the board all dirty and pasty. I had this stuff on my bench, so I decided to go ahead and use it, some denatured alcohol. It works really, really great if you have something hot glued and you need to take it apart. Denatured alcohol is your friend. And it's, as you see, it's electronic safe. And when I cleaned it up, you can see, I could see that there's some spots that just weren't quite fully soldered. This gave me the opportunity to touch those up. I felt that the denatured alcohol wasn't quite doing the correct job, so I threw some rubbing alcohol in there, which I saw in another recommended video. Nothing to be a better job at cleaning it all up. I'll try to do a close visual inspection of everything. So now we can start inserting components. Again, this is polar sensitive. Little nub on the end indicating pin 1. And my OCD starts kicking in. Kind of sticky on the backside, kind of dirty. It's like a squirrel. Okay, let's get back to inserting that chip where we were supposed to be. Okay, everything seems smooth. And wow, that was easy. Oh, maybe not. Of course, it won't be that easy. Half the pins didn't go in. What you are about to see and witness, I do not recommend. So I tried to rock the pins in, and that didn't work. So just like the small chip, I had to squeeze all of the pins in a little bit. I do not recommend this method of the fingers. I would suggest putting it flat on a table and perhaps rocking it so that they all move at once at the same time smoothly. As you see, I flustered myself trying to use my hands and even grabbed the needle nose a couple times to try to get a nice smooth inlet. There's a much easier process for this. So I proceeded. Look, it looks good. Double check, double check. Before you go with the insert, everything looks good. Okay, let's go. No. And another lesson learned. Do not rock the chip in. See, look at that. I bent a pin. Take it out. Don't try to force it. Take it out. Straighten it out. Double check your direction again. Make sure they're aligned. So you got a little needle nose for tweezers. Just enough to insert it, but not all the way. Looks good. Now a nice even push all the way around at once. Makes for a smoother insert. No pins buckled. Again, the stickiness just annoyed me. So I tried to use a rag and the rag just fell apart. As I said, I'm not an expert builder. I don't do this as a profession. I just try to pay attention to detail as I do through the instructions. forgot to mention Jim helped me out a lot too. Made sure I had everything going good. Excellent customer service from Jim. Okay, so moment of truth. Let's start putting the fuses in, abiding by the proper amperage rating. Now I just grabbed out of my electronics part this old cell phone charger. It was 5 volts, about 550 milliamps. So I cut it and I pre-tinned the ends. And then I double check the voltage. Per manual, we only want to put about 5 volts to this, very little milliamps, because if you allow too much current to go through, you could let the magic smoke out. And looks like we got our positive and negatives backwards. So now we know which ones are positive and which ones are negative. Now, the moment of truth. Ta-da!